Y'all do not have to sit far back unless you want. There are plenty of seats up here. We won't bite you, I promise. We would love for some folks to come in and be a little closer. Oh, y'all are so generous. Come on up. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Please. How are we on time? I don't wear a watch.
It's 11.
It's 11. It's right at 11. Great. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you, panelists, for being here. Have a little introduction. And I have one more handout for my class. I teach an 11 o'clock class, so all my 11 o'clock English 112 students, make sure that you get 3 handouts by the time you leave today. There are 3 handouts for you if you're in my English 112. And I see a couple of people grinning because they're like, I took that last semester and I'm not in there anymore. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here. This is our very first student reading panel. And my name, if we've not met, is Jennifer Parrack-Rogers, and I'm one of the English faculty here at the college. And these are our readers. Robert's one of our readers too. These are my past students. These are students who have taken English 111, English 112, and we even have an American Literature 2 student, a 3rd semester English student with us today reading. They didn't have to be here. And yet let's just start with that. They didn't have to be here, and yet when I sent out the call to them to please, we want to have a reading panel. Our college community, our campus is curious about what our writers are choosing. They choose their own topics. What are they choosing to write about? And we want to hear your unique voice. So thank you so much for answering the call and for bravely showing up. And it just really speaks to your dedication to your own learning, to continuously stretch yourself and be brave and join new situations. So thank you. Thank you also to the library for really just continuously creating a safe and beautiful space where our students can explore their own thoughts, they can ask difficult questions, and they can feel safe and welcomed. So thank you very much to the library. We also have college administrators here, and thank you for being curious and supportive of our students. Thank you. So we do have 8 readers, 1 via video, and we are going to make sure that the video of the 8th reader who couldn't be here today, we're going to make sure that gets on the full video recording today, but we probably won't be able to play that because the original recording, the sound was just a little too low. So we'll make sure that Nicole's reading gets in the final video. So I want to say a few words about my experience with these students and about the title of our reading today and the spirit of our reading today, and then I'll turn it over to them, and they'll each be reading about 3 pages of their papers. So in some cases it's a paper in its entirety, and in other cases it's an excerpt. So I want to give you a sense of what to expect. So they'll each be reading, like I said, about three pages. So this is a college event. Come on up, right up here. Right up here. Yes, please join us. So that was perfect timing. These, I asked them to come in exactly at that point because they're demonstrating, this is a college event, and we know in college that we all have 10 places to be today across the campus and even off campus. So it's perfectly acceptable and welcome during our reading if we need to come in a little bit late or if we need to move to the next appointment. Okay, we understand that, and that's part of being a college audience. So as their writing instructor, I see the blood, sweat, and tears that my students put into their writing. And that is part of the purpose of today's reading panel, is to celebrate their hard work. In addition to sharing our appreciation and honoring our students, today's reading creates a learning opportunity for my current class, as I was explaining earlier. So if you see my students busily writing, okay, you're gonna get like 3 handouts in a few minutes. I think Isaac's gonna make sure that you get those, right, Isaac? Thank you. So there are 3 handouts that my 11 o'clockers need, and so they are listening to this reading today, and they're practicing the skills, the study of rhetoric, the rhetorical elements, particularly today, my 11 o'clockers. Audience connection and purpose, right? How do they connect with you? Where in their writing and in their voices are they establishing that purpose and that connection with you as listeners? So there's a handout that you'll be filling out. So if you see them busily taking notes, that's what they're doing. So I think that's enough of the logistics, and we can move into the title of our reading panel today, the asking, Writing for Resilience. At the start of winter, I experienced a great loss in my family. And at the same time, I experienced what many of us do. An awareness of the world's suffering that seemed unbearable. And I remember reading some student papers and wondering at their strength, and also being uplifted by them. Some of our students have overcome such obstacles, and I often feel humbled by their sharing. So that's where the title of this panel, the theme of this panel, comes out of that question. What do we do in the face of despair? How do our students each day continue to show up and inspire us with their strength? And how does writing fit into that? So the title of our panel comes from a poem that reflects our students' patient and steady power. Each semester, I choose a poem or a theme to help ground and motivate our work and our writing. And this winter, in my heart and at work, I kept experiencing that question. How do they keep going on in the face of human despair and with the bombardment of the news of suffering? How do we go on when our hearts are broken, or when we fear, you'll hear in the poem, a falling world? So that question led me to Jane Hirshfield's poem from her book, The Asking. So to kick us off, we'll listen to Jane Hirshfield's poem called Counting This New Year's Morning, What Powers Yet Remain to Me. So this is her reading her poem from her book. It's about 2 minutes long.
The world asks, as it asks daily, and what can you make, can you do to change my deep, broken, fractured? I count this first day of another year what remains. I have a mountain, a kitchen, 2 hands. Can admire with 2 eyes the mountain, actual, recalcitrant, shuffling its pebbles, sheltering foxes and beetles. Can make black-eyed peas and collards. Can make from last year's late-ripening persimmons a pudding. Can climb a stepladder, change the bulb in a track light. For years, I woke each day first to the mountain, then to the question. The feet of the new sufferings followed the feet of the old, and still they surprised. I brought salt, brought oil to the question, brought sweet tea, brought postcards and stamps. For years, each day, something. Stone did not become apple. War did not become peace. Yet joy still stays joy. Sequins stay sequins. Words still bespangle, bewilder. Today I woke without answer. The day answers, and pockets of thought as though from a friend. Don't despair of this falling world. Not yet. Didn't it give you the asking?
Our panelist's writing is an asking. And in the asking is evidence of human hope, which gives us strength we need to go on. Writing is a sign of hope. And in the writings you hear today, in the face of personal struggle and in the face of overwhelmingly large questions, our students continue to ask difficult questions and witness their own and others' suffering from a range of viewpoints. You will hear readers from freshman composition and rhetoric. You will hear poetry analysis and even an original poem. And you'll hear some vivid, magical description. The American Literature 2 paper explores the literary movement of realism. Realism highlights a time when Americans were moving en masse from rural areas to cities. They were becoming more aware at the turn of the 20th century of government corruption and fellow citizens' suffering, which writers explored by asking difficult questions. Thank you to our readers for being brave enough to share their thoughts with you. And thank you again for joining us and for joining us in appreciation. Please welcome our student writers, and I hope you enjoy their readings today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lily Dukes. I am a senior in high school at Henderson County Early College. This spring, I will be graduating with both my associate's and high school diploma, my associate's in arts as well as my high school diploma. In the fall, I hope to be attending either NC State or UNC Chapel Hill to receive my bachelor's in political science as a precursor to my law degree. This essay was a piece of reflection after my first semester of my junior year, one that I do not entirely agree with anymore, but I do believe that this piece is an incredible exploration of all description, presence, and voice. I do hope you receive something from this reading today. This essay is titled Molded by Tears. Growing up, the fear of changing future ruled over my nightmares. Those who have been through a childhood of constant change know what it is like to not feel attached to friends at school or get petty looks from teachers when their parents forget to pick them up from school. Even though change has constantly plagued my being, this past semester, I have become stoic to the shifting currents of life. After my first beach trip in 2014 that ended in a car accident, my mother decided to take another trip with her sister to make up for the wreck. Even with a 6-year-old's comprehension, this sense of distress lingered throughout my entire body for weeks. The week turned into 2, and then it turned into her sister telling my dad that she had no longer planned to come back. Overhearing that conversation from the dark hallway left my small frame in a state of despair. It was as if my eyes only felt normal when tears were cascading from them. In her absence, life started to feel like one big waterfall, constantly going down, streaming sorrow. After 2 years, she returned to Hendersonville, only to divorce my dad and end up just spending time with us in public spaces. After school, she would take me and my sister to the Fletcher Library to sit in silence. Few words, if any, were exchanged. Sometimes the books would soak up teardrops I did not realize were fallen until the words on the pages began to blur. It was then she realized that the library was not the best place to meet, so instead she took us down the street to Blue Sky Cafe for a hamburger. Maybe she thought food would make up for all the time in the silent days in the library. But the only thing that the hamburger did was soak up more tears. After that meeting, all the after school meetings ended. She knew that there was no explanation to give to the broken, pleading faces of her children to justify her absence. Growing up with a single dad also meant money did not come easily. We were homeless without my mom, and by 2nd grade had to move in with my grandparents, while also switching schools. Teachers would talk to me in the counselor's office for years about my feelings until they had enough from the tears. After a year, we were kicked out to live in my dead relative's home. A mentality that kids began to develop in broken homes is fight or flight. The perturbed waiting for who will leave next or where you'll be living next month plagues every thought. In the summer before 5th grade, my dad got remarried to a single mother of 3 children. Part of me wanted to accept her and call her mom as well. Youthful trauma had made me gullible to people who walked into our lives, and even more angry at those who walked out. 2 weeks into the marriage, my stepmom threw our belongings onto our old lawn. My dad, my sister, and I were kicked out again. Rather than tears, I only felt rage. While starting my junior year at Henderson County Early College, my sister was moving away for her own degree at Mars Hill University. All summer, we had spent every waking moment together before she had to go. I knew that I was going to have that pang I remembered all too well, and that sense of abandonment, and of course, the waterworks. But then she moved out, and I didn't cry for one moment. Instead, we FaceTimed for a little, and I went to bed that night just fine. But like most things seem to happen, it didn't exactly go to plan. 1 week into her first semester, she came home with excruciating stomach pain and an even worse mental state than she had left with. Within her first week home, she had gotten into a huge argument with my dad. They had left the house to work things out, and an hour later, my dad called me saying he would no longer be getting home soon because he was at Party Hospital where my sister was admitting herself into the mental facility. I only responded with one word. Okay. I hung up the phone and went right back to doing my homework like a well-oiled machine. There was no pain in my heart, just pure indifference. Within 10 minutes, my aunt had heard what happened and made me stay with my grandmother for the night. Showered in hugs and, "Are you okay?" did nothing to comfort my emptiness. I slept that night without a tear shed. The next day, my aunt took me to Texas Roadhouse, which I assumed was to cheer me up. But I ate a hamburger again, and there was no taste. No soggy bread from tears. There was nothing. The next week, my sister returned home, making me break away from the perennial straight line that my lips made. I was glad she was home until I realized that it was only to pack her bags. In Party's Psychiatric and Addictions Health Services Unit, or PATHS, they had advised her to leave the environment that was causing her depression and supervised until she could live on her own. I wish the news shattered my heart, but all I could do was say, okay. My sister was no longer someone I could rely on to stay, but just another person to walk out of the door. While being the only kid at home felt odd, the change seemed to be just one more thing I had to suck up and move on with. So many children around the world have had to bear the stress of parents, siblings, and friends coming in and out of their lives, leaving them to only wonder who will leave next. Thank you.
Victoria, I'm going to have you pause for just a second. Thank you so much. Jennifer, I'm not used to Canva. It was the full screen and I needed to go back. Glad I could help. Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, Treadway.
Hi, my name is Victoria Dmytryszyn. I'm currently a senior at Blue Ridge and Henderson County Early College, and I will be graduating in May of 2026, and I've been accepted to UNC Chapel Hill, where I plan to major in neuroscience with the goal of becoming a neurologist. The paper I will be reading is based on my experience of losing my home during Hurricane Helene, and what it looks like, and it looks at what the loss meant to me, not just what was taken. This paper explores the question, how does the loss of a home during Hurricane Helene affect personal identity and emotional security beyond material destruction? It examines how losing a space tied to memory, comfort, and routine can disrupt a person's sense of stability, while also highlighting the role of community in the aftermath. My paper, The Cost of the Hurricane. September 27, 2024 was a historical tragedy for many in western North Carolina as Hurricane Helene unleashed its potency on this area. Hurricane Helene uprooted trees and lives, scattering them like leaves during an autumn rainstorm. This hurricane made its way through the Hendersonville and Asheville area that Friday and directly hit Clear Creek Landing, the place I always called home. Houses in my neighborhood were once warm and welcoming and now filled with debris along with sewage from all over. The Brazilian cherry hardwood became mud-caked pathways. The various shades of brown walls soaked with mud began peeling. The cost of losing a home during Hurricane Helene extended beyond the loss of all my material possessions, but through this devastation, I gained the unwavering support of the community. Losing a home is like losing part of yourself. My house was more than walls and a roof. It was a collection of memories. I recall opening presents on Christmas morning and being overfilled with joy, along with sitting at the dining table tirelessly focusing on my homework. My parents and I would watch movies such as Barbie and the 12 Dancing Princesses and Anastasia in the living room, and I slept soundly in my lavender bedroom. 7 feet of water invaded my home, knocking everything everywhere, displacing other items, breaking others, and covering everything with mud. The floodwaters did not just wash away my possessions, they eradicated the feeling of consolation my home held. My shoes, clothes, furniture, books, and much more were left affected by the flood and destroyed. Walking through my house for the first time after the flood felt surreal. It was as if I were the protagonist in a disaster movie. I could not grasp the idea that my once cozy bedroom with my plush twin-size bed and the soft, cushioned light gray couch in the living room were now warped and looked like rubbish. It did not make sense that a home I always felt sheltered in was now deemed unlivable and unsafe. This storm has caused many to realize family and survival are the most important. Material items can be replaced, but loved ones cannot. The loss of my home was truly devastating, but it came with an unexpected gain. People who have stepped forward to support my family and I during the tragedy. During the hurricane, it felt as though I was without an umbrella and during the storm alone. But the community around me became the shelter and comfort I yearned for. Family members of neighbors I had only exchanged greetings with in the past were providing meals for all 31 houses. Teachers from Henderson County Early College and friends from Hendersonville Presbyterian Church and Pat School of Dance started working as an army of helpers. Through their kind actions and words of encouragement, hope sparkled. The disastrous event has taught me pragmatic lessons I never expected to learn as a 17-year-old. I learned how to handle the puzzle of insurance paperwork, how to take precise notes on the damage to the house, and how to advocate for myself and my family in a cold and lifeless system that is full of twists and turns. These life skills will endure long after the water and mud have dried, and the house has been restored to a more modernized version. The skills have become part of a survival kit with tools that will aid many, including myself, in future challenges. Hurricane Helene demolished places many called home and uprooted lives, leaving numerous families struggling to maneuver the repercussions of the hurricane. Yet, out of the debris and negativity, a community became united by benevolence and resilience. This horrible natural disaster emphasized that communities are potent when each converges in times of need and support. Neighbors who were only distant colleagues and waved occasionally depended on one another in manners they never predicted, such as someone to talk through one's emotions, cry, or laugh with. Hurricane Helene truly wrecked many items families held near to their hearts, but it exposed Hendersonville, North Carolina, as well as neighboring counties, thriving through collaboration and indefatigable support. Thank you.
Great. Dixie, will you hit the arrow so that your name is shown? Before you start, I just need to remind my students of one thing. My 112ers, my 11 o'clockers, you have 3 handouts, right? The one is giving you the first page of their reading, just so you have some text if you need a quote for your handout. The handout that is a table, right? We're looking at rhetorical elements of purpose and audience. Did anybody put down the word lessons, right? Think of all the times that Victoria just repeated, especially in the last part of her paper, right? That one column that says strategies. What are her rhetorical strategies? How is she connecting with you? How is she teaching you the meaning of what she's saying? She's teaching you the word lessons, life lessons, survival kit. Do you hear how those are all synonyms, right? So the strategy is repetition, right? But on that handout, I'm looking for specific examples of repetition, and you have to pull them from each of their readings. All right? So you understand what to do on the handout? Any questions about that handout? Right on. Nice job. I see y'all writing. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
Hi, my name is Dixie Waldrop. I'm 17 years old and a dual enrolled student with both Blue Ridge Community College and Henderson County Early College. I wrote this first essay in early September of last year and really just hoped to bring more awareness and support to people who suffer from seasonal depression. I wanted to describe it in the best way I knew how, through my writing. I think the main question I wanted to ask with this essay is, what is the point of going through the highs and lows of life? Why push through the hard times when you know another one is going to come? And why be happy during the good times if you know that the other shoe is yet to drop? My essay's title is The Continuous Descent into Nothingness. Seasonal depression is waking up one morning and feeling like the heart is a malfunctioning machine. Like it needs one critical piece to work properly, but the piece is unattainable, it is unclear what it is or how to find it. Seasonal depression is random, chaotic, frustrating, overwhelming, stressful, and mind-blowingly earth-shattering. But it is not consecutive. It changes with the seasons. First is spring, the season leading to the very personification of grace. Winter and all the sorrow he brought with him have begun to fade, creating a new epic. The pit of despair seems to crack with spring and her promises of new life. The flowers begin to bloom in their everlasting, extravagant colors, and the weather begins to warm. Spring is a new dawn. She gives opportunities to restart and allows for some long-needed rest. The slightest bit of rest. Spring is overwhelming, but she feels more like a gentle nudge and less like a battering ram breaking down the door. Friends seem more approachable, family is within grasp, and the happiness finally seeps back in. It begins to feel like people care again, like not everything is meaningless, and that you can actually find joy in the things you once loved. School becomes easier, work is shorter, and life is overall more enjoyable. As spring whispers her last secrets to the awakening earth, summer shouts her arrival with an otherworldly blast of color and warmth. Summer feels like pure bliss. The sun envelops depression's victims like a warm oven, and the long days are like a vibrant, buzzing song. The air is fresher, the sun is warmer, and everything feels happier, more peaceful. Depression, with his hands as sharp as knives, has disappeared. He's on vacation. People can be themselves again. More activities are picked up, more devotion is put into their hobbies, and more love is directed towards their friends and family. It is like being on top of the world, on cloud 9. But how long will it last? They begin to fall, slowly at first. Autumn continues the honeymoon phase that summer brought through a variety of gifts. She offers a pumpkin spice chai latte from Starbucks to soothe the transition into the chilling season, along with pumpkin carving, Halloween, spooky rides, and her leaves that are a fiery tapestry draped across the landscape. But depression peeks around the corner, warning everyone of his impending arrival. He is coming, and there is nothing that can be done to prevent it. Winter brings a bitter cold that whips through the trees, causing a chilling lash to crash upon the landscape. Depression has returned. He's never gone long enough, and he slithers his way back in when people least expect it. Waking up feels like a chore, committing to anything is a hassle, and friends and family hate them. Winter and depression are best friends, going hand in hand. Both gnaw at their victims like a wolf with icy fangs, biting at anything left exposed. There is no warmth, no pumpkin spice, and no beautiful colors of the previous seasons to soothe anyone. The change is abrupt. It comes out of nowhere. 1 second feels like nothing can go wrong, and the next feels like nothing can go right. People begin to question their existence, wondering what they did so horribly wrong to deserve this punishment. The first stage is anger. Anger at themselves for being so gullible, for finding happiness when they knew what was coming. Anger in the world for treating them like this, and anger in everyone they love for not understanding their emotions. Anger leads to sadness, and sadness leads to nothingness. They feel absolutely nothing. No motivation, no fear, no sadness, anger, happiness, stress, jealousy, nothing, 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 just nothing. Emptiness. This continuous descent is a silent grave. It kills people slowly and reopens wounds that never seem to heal. Depression is not consecutive. He changes with the seasons, and winter is the worst of all. Winter is his accomplice in this never-ending murder. Winter and depression work simultaneously to torture people for 3 to 4 horrendous months until there is nearly nothing left of them. Then the process restarts, their continuous descent into nothingness. Now, I know that one left on a dismal note, but that's what seasonal depression truly means to me. My next piece, a poem titled Ambivalence, should hopefully give more of an invigorating feeling. To me, the waves on a beach are like pure bliss. They are peaceful, beautiful, and full of wonders we may never grasp. The fiery golden skies of a sunset or the murmuring of turquoise waves bring a sense of tranquility that nothing else can equate to. Maybe this is why sandpipers are often seen on the sandy shores of beaches. They are allured by the beauty and terrified of the dangers at the same time. They are always so close to reaching the sunlit, cresting waves, but flee at the last second. And that way, I'm similar to a sandpiper. Sometimes I feel so close to having everything I could ever dream of, but fall short in the last possible moment. I'm enthralled with what my future could bring me, but scared of leaving the safety of the presence. Maybe that's for the best, though. Like the ocean, paradise has several aspects that will leave us eternally baffled. There are beautiful and otherworldly creations in the sea, but there are also terrifying ones. It is a matter of perspective on what differentiates the two. Like the sandpiper, we are all guilty of being frightened of what we do not understand. Yet the inquisitiveness seems to subdue emotions of fear.
Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I think I can speak for all of my fellow readers that we are so excited that we were invited to do this and to share our writings with you. My name is Christine Voss. I am an entirely online, non-traditional student here with Blue Ridge Community College. I will graduate in May, and I have been accepted to ECU, where I will continue my studies in August, pursuing a degree in education. And I do really hope to remain with Henderson County Public Schools, whom I am currently with, as a teacher of, unfortunately, not maybe English, more towards science, although I will always love tea. I think that's why I took so many English courses, because I really do love tea. So my paper is on a very lovely realism writer named Sarah Orne Jewett, who I adore. So we're going to get started. Realism celebrated in life and nature in Sarah Orne Jewett's A White Heron. An oft-lauded skill of great writers is their ability to create complex characters who experience deep motivations, loyalties, and sometimes conflicts of inner self. A character such as this can be found in Sarah Orne Jewett's A White Heron. Through her pen and ink in 1886, Jewett tells the story of a young girl living just inland from the coast of northern New England, whose loyalty is tested when she must decide the fate of a rare white heron being sought by an ornithologist. Jewett also creates a complex character in nature, giving nature a significant role interacting with the story's human characters. Jewett presents an endearing tale founded in realism, resulting in a piece that engages the reader's senses and emotions. Realism writing is recognized as writing in which characters, setting, and plot are depicted honestly as ordinary people doing ordinary things in their everyday lives without fantasy or idealization. In A White Heron, Jewett displays elements of realism in numerous ways. The reader is introduced to the young heroine, Sylvia. It is told that Sylvia is poor. She lives with her grandmother, Mrs. Tilley, in a forested rural area within a specific region of the United States. She helps her grandmother with daily chores and everyday tasks. And Sylvia is a lonely child with no friends. These details and descriptions given by Jewett aid the reader in understanding Sylvia's motivations and actions as the story progresses. Described by literary anthologist Paul Lauder as, quote, a matter of faithfulness to the surfaces of American life, end quote, realism writers such as Jewett sought to, quote, represent the landscape and speech patterns, habits, and manners of the nation's rural areas, end quote. Descriptions of Sylvia and her grandmother's daily routines and the language they use with one another are tenets of their realism style of writing. Jewett described Sylvia and her grandmother as, quote, poor now, end quote, and the $10 offered by the ornithologist to help him locate the white heron could, quote, make them rich with money, end quote. Sylvia and her grandmother live in a, quote, best thrift of an old-fashioned farmstead, end quote, in the Jewett's amply described New England wilderness. To help her grandmother, one of the chores Sylvia is responsible for is the very rural activity of driving home her grandmother's milking cow, Mistress Mooley, by herself every evening. The young ruralist Sylvia also helps her grandmother with tasks like wild berry picking, because Sylvia was a great help at berry picking, according to her grandmother. Sylvia is portrayed as lonely, excuse me, and as written by Jewett, quote, has no playmates, end quote, except for her valued companion, Mistress Mooley. Sylvia's grandmother, Mrs. Tilley, states to the ornithologist that Sylvia spends so much time in the wild with the wild animals that they, quote, counts her a one of their own. Naturalism tenets bloom in the way Jewett uses nature as a setting, but also as an ever-present character, enriching and shaping Sylvia's actions and her view of the world. As the story moves through its dawns and dusks, the reader begins to realize how the sum of the components of Jewett's realism and some naturalism reveals not just a poor, lonely child doing chores on a rural New England farm with her grandmother, but an emotionally rich, inquisitive, vibrantly active young girl with a quiet assuredness hidden behind her shy gray eyes. The introduction of the ornithologist and his intentions into the story creates an ethical struggle within Sylvia. Sylvia must decide whether to betray the location of the heron to the ornithologist and collect the $10 reward, or remain loyal to the natural world that has created a sanctuary for her. In UNC Greenborough's Kelly Griffith Jr.'s critical essay, Griffith Jr. states, quote, Sylvia would be a heroic defender of pristine nature against those who would reduce it to a commercial value. $10 for the life of one heron, end quote, suggesting that Sylvia would be a protector, a young female conservationist at heart, while the ornithologist sees nature only for its monetary possibilities. Ecofeminist essayist Rob Brault claims, quote, trading an animal for money begins the emotional separation from non-human nature with which Sylvia will struggle at the story's climax. Sylvia's ultimate struggle begins as she learns the ornithologist's intentions for the white heron. Her desire to impress the ornithologist and earn his good favor, as well as the $10 reward, is in direct conflict with the admiration and the wonder she feels for her avian compatriot. Cutting and bruising herself while climbing the aged pine at the edge of her lane to seek out the bird, she fights not only the piercing needles and sap-soaked branches, but also her inner emotional squall. Nature, though, has surely not abandoned its good friend Sylvia in her struggles. The aged pine tree, knowingly and gently, assists Sylvia in her climb, helping her to gain a longed-for view of the sea and the heron's nesting place. With Jewett narrating, quote, who knows how steadily the least twigs held themselves to advantage this light, weak creature, and the tree stood still and frowned away the winds, end quote. Jewett explains how nature assists Sylvia in her search for the heron's nesting place. Jewett declares, quote, the old pine must have loved his new dependent. End quote. Nature rewards Sylvia for her amity by inspiring the male white heron to perch just below Sylvia while she is in the pine tree. This reward of closeness and connection to the heron, coupled with the opportunity to gaze upon the beauteous enormity of the sea, binds Sylvia's loyalty to the natural world. Sylvia's struggle concludes when she confidently feigns ignorance as to the whereabouts of the heron when questioned by the ornithologist. Any desire she had to assist the ornithologist and hold his favored gaze was carried away with the cool mist of a tranquil New England morning. Unable to fulfill his shallow goal of becoming wealthy off the plumes and hackles of nature's most magnificent creatures, the ornithologist ultimately gives up his search and moves on. Although Sylvia was tempted by thoughts and desires unearthed by the ornithologist's appeal, the happiness and treasures nature has bestowed upon her are far more valuable to Sylvia than 10 of man's dollars. My paper asks the question about connection. Who are we connected to? What are we connected to? And how does that connection strengthen us in our resolve? How does connection to community strengthen how we rebuild after we leave? What does it mean to be connected? And how can we cherish that connection? Thank you.
Christine, don't you want to tell me about the post-stamp?
Oh my gosh, thank you. So I told her to remind me because I knew I was going to forget. Okay, really quick. If you're a stamp collector, and even if you're not a stamp collector and you just happen to be by the local post office, Sarah Orne Jewett has her very own United States postal stamp coming out this summer. I'm really excited about that because that puts her up with Emily Dickinson and Maya Angelou. Woo! Get your stamp, girl. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Elias.
All right. Hello, my name is Elias Alger. This is my 4th semester at Blue Ridge Community College. I'm hoping to transfer to a 4-year institution in the fall to study both sociology and cultural anthropology. The essay that I'll be reading today is my cause and effect essay from English 111, which explores the question of how a specific form of art, fiction podcasts, allow marginalized people to connect with each other in an increasingly divided world. This is the Fellowship of Fiction Podcasts. In 2023, the American Civil Liberties Union tracked 510 anti-LGBTQ+ laws in the United States. While not all 510 were passed, that number still illustrates the danger that LGBTQ+ rights face in our country. In a world that continues to try and silence LGBTQ+ voices, it's vital that LGBTQ+ people are able to connect with one another. One of those forms of connection is art. There will always be people creating art, particularly in the face of adversity. A form of art that stands out to me is fiction podcasts. Due to the popularization of LGBTQ+ culture in fiction podcasts, the fact that there is a low barrier of entry to start and consume podcasts, and there's less censorship in comparison to other forms of media, fiction podcasts are a safe and accessible form of LGBTQ+ stories. Going forward in this essay, I've chosen to use the word queer as an umbrella term for the LGBTQ+ community, alongside the acronym itself, as both encompass the many different identities in the community. However, I do want to take a moment to acknowledge the complicated feelings other LGBTQ+ people may have with the word queer. While it's a word that I'm personally comfortable reclaiming, I don't want to dismiss the painful history associated with it. With that in mind, an immediate example of a safe and accessible queer fiction podcast is Welcome to Night Vale. The first episode, released in 2012, is aptly titled Pilot. In this episode, the narrator, Cecil, introduces the listener to the fictional town of Nightvale. The primary point throughout the episode is to establish the weirdness of the town. What's relevant to us is how Cecil mentions a new scientist is moving to Nightvale. He goes on to say, quote, "He grinned, and everything about him was perfect, and I fell in love instantly," end quote. With that sentence, Welcome to Nightvale established itself as an explicitly queer podcast in the first episode, and it paved the way for other queer podcasts down the line. At the time of Welcome to Nightvale's release, there weren't many popular fiction podcasts. As Welcome to Nightvale grew in popularity in online spaces, the fact that the main character's identity was never hidden is salient, as it meant other queer fiction podcasts coming afterwards already had queer culture to build off of. More queer fiction podcasts did start to come out as podcasting became more popular in general. For the sake of time, I'm not going to be covering all of the ways that fiction podcasts have a low barrier of entry. The main point that you all need to know is that because fiction podcasts are transmitted online and they're an audio medium, it allows a variety of people from all over the world to work together without necessarily needing to work with a massive company. Mass media companies tend to focus on what appeals to a broad audience. This often necessitates queer stories being modified for marketability. If someone doesn't want to modify their story, finding a large company to work with can be a difficult task. With fiction podcasts, queer creators are able to readily tell their stories online without worrying about potential censorship in their creation process. Speaking of censorship, let's focus on books for a moment. In recent years, there's been an uptick in the number of books written by minority groups being banned from school libraries. According to the American Library Association, works representing LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC stories were 47% of those targeted in censorship attempts in 2023. These censorship attempts mean that accessing books representing minority experiences can be difficult, if not impossible, for some children. In contrast, it's an onerous task to censor an audio medium that's primarily transmitted online. While there are ways to prevent people from going to specific websites, there are often other methods of accessing fiction podcasts, whether that be through transcripts of the episodes or using a different app or website entirely. As long as there is some way to listen to the audio or otherwise engage with the story, it will be accessible to someone. Someone in an unsafe household may be unable to independently access physical media related to LGBTQ+ topics. While hiding a queer book can be difficult, if not outright dangerous, podcasts don't have the same level of visuals, meaning headphones or an otherwise private space are the main requirements to access them safely. For people who can't access other visual forms of LGBTQ+ content, they still have a way to connect with characters and people who understand them online. Having an easily accessible medium is important for those who may otherwise be isolated from the rest of their community. For example, maybe they're in a rural area where it's less safe for them to be visibly queer. Finally, the representation in fiction podcasts is often casual representation. Rather than the focus being on the trauma of being queer, it's on the character's existence. For people who can't exist authentically as themselves for their own safety, it's important that they hear queer characters, and by extension, queer people living as themselves. If we think back to Welcome to Nightvale, there's no big moment where the narrator, Cecil, says that he's gay. He is able to exist as he is, without the trauma of being queer being the sole focus, because the focus is on his weird town. He discusses homophobia once, far later in the podcast, but it is not personally experienced by the listener. This can't be said for a lot of mainstream queer media. When we're represented at all, the focus tends to be on the trauma of being queer. While the shared trauma of being queer is an important part of our community, it is not the only part. Our joy is just as important as our pain. We do not exist to suffer. when the rest of the world can't promise the safety of connecting with other queer people, there is an easily accessible medium that can. And in our current political climate, that solace of connection through stories is more important than ever.
Robert, so we can just, yeah, I think that'd be, quick, quick. We just need to click on PC.
I thought I just used the first word. Can you go for it?
Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Salaski. I'm a freshman here at Blue Ridge Community College. A second semester student of Miss JPR, and I'm studying business here at this college. Before my time here at Blue Ridge Community College, I spent my career in the Navy, more specifically aboard the submarine fleet. My last assigned duty station was a boat by the name of the USS West Virginia. It's a nuclear-powered Ohio-class submarine with about 150 warheads on it. While performing basic maintenances in the military, like fixing broken things, I would see instances where something like a small, like 1-inch screw would cost my command $1,000. So I looked further into this issue to find that that this was happening all throughout the military. And after some internal question, I decided to look further into military spending, and then I wrote this this research paper that I'd like to read from.
Just tell me when you need to change a
Sure.
slide.
All right. So the research paper is called "The Trade-Off: Post 9/11 U.S. Military Spending versus Economic Growth and Innovation." And it goes, in 2024, the United States spent nearly $1.2 trillion on its military, a figure greater than the combined military expenditures of the next 8 highest spending nations altogether. This astonishing level of defense spending surpasses the budget of other world powers such as China, which we spent 4 times as much, and Russia, which we spent 10 times as much, and they're in an active war at the moment. Such prioritization of military expenditure invites question about the spending of national resources, how it's decided, and what it says about the long-term American societal health. Martin Luther King passionately put it, "A nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual death." King's words are especially applicable today, as the immense resource devotion to the military creates opportunity costs for domestic progress. Continued U.S. prioritization on military spending, especially weapons procurement and foreign intervention, is diverting important resources away from areas of the country's needs. Diplomacy, social welfare, and material needs are equally as important as defense, arguably more important to some. The public needs to be aware of the unrelenting U.S. military expenditures post 9/11 that go on without question, and their serious consequences for domestic investment and the general health of the country. So since 9/11, the Department of War has only shown signs of increasing this spending. Every year, the United States proposes an astronomical defense budget, only to claim that it's still not enough. To further boost military spending, recent budget proposals, most notably those by the Trump administration, have suggested drastic cuts to funds for education, clean energy, among others. Resources are thus taken away from programs that could better the condition of life for Americans, and then placed into maintaining the world's already most powerful military. While military strength does remain a source of national pride, Americans need to see things for what they really are. Perhaps no one said it better than President Dwight D. Eisenhower in his address, A Chance for Peace, which concluded this way: "The world in arms is not spending money alone. It is spending the sweat of its laborers, the genius of its scientists, and the hopes of its children." His words captured the enduring heavy costs of militarization and delve into the sacrifice attached to fulfilling this end. In 2025, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres criticized military global spending, which reached record high and claimed that the world is spending far more on waging war than on building peace. While his address was aimed at all member nations, it specifically called out the United States as the worst offender. Guterres said that excessive spending diverts resources away from vital areas such as sustainable development, education, and healthcare. Excessive spending on the military does not guarantee peace, he asserted. It often undermines it by fueling arms races, deepening mistrust, and draining the foundation for stability. At the same time, the Secretary General calls on nations to rethink priorities and invest in more human-centered security, claiming that a better path is within reach. So just some basic points that I wanted to bring up is that we do have a national debt that's rapidly approaching $40 trillion. And then of this almost $40 trillion, the analysts are totaling our war debts are right about 23 trillion. You know, that's with interest. It's going to take lifetimes to pay. Of this almost 40 trillion, it's like 38 something. 10 trillion has been spent since 9/11, a war in the Middle East. So you know, the wars are progressively getting more and more expensive. These foreign wars are not paid with debt; they're paid up front. They're financed through borrowing, and our youth aren't voting for these wars, but they are going to be the ones that are going to pay for them. So I wanted to end with a few statements. If we look at the United States as like a family, and this family is maxing out its credit cards on nonstop emergencies, that family can't save for college or retirement. And I'll end with this. A nation that constantly prepares for war is quietly mortgaging its youth's future.
Next leader, Miss Allison.
Hi, my name is Allison. I'll be graduating in 2027 from Blue Ridge. My career goal is to be a teacher for creative writing. And today I'll be unpacking You've Seen Balloons Set, Haven't You? By Emily Dickinson. This paper explores the depths of Dickinson's spirituality and reflects the extraordinary in the ordinary. You've seen balloons set, haven't you? So stately they ascend. It is a swan's discarded view, for duty's diamond. Their liquid beak go out softly out upon the sea of blonde. They spurn the air as it were too mean for creatures so renowned. The ribbons just beyond the eye, they struggle some for the breath. And yet the crowd applaud below, they would not encore death. The gilded creatures strain and spin, trips frantic in a tree, tears open her imperial veins and tumbles in the sea. The crowd retire with an oath, the dust in the streets. Go down, and clerks in the counting rooms observe 'twas only a balloon. In Dickinson's poem, called either You've Seen Balloons Set, Haven't You? Or simply She uses the metaphor of a crowd watching balloons fly away for the nature of human life of mystics. They seem completely unrecognized by those around them who see them but do not understand. Many consider Emily Dickinson herself to be a mystic with her poetic genius, often opening a crack of a door or window for readers she had not even intended. She wrote her flood subjects about life, death, nature, and God. The metaphor of 700 is the balloon itself. Balloons have a lot of symbolism, such as freedom, happiness, and optimism. In this context, however, Emily Dickinson is using a metaphor for the lives of sages, specifically, or perhaps even referring to herself. The ribbon on the balloon can symbolize materialism, thoughts, or emotions, tethering people to an earthly realm. Lastly, the people in the sea and the clerk represent the general population. The balloon metaphors for sages that leave mundane life behind for something greater. It is as swans discard youth for diamond duties. The balloon imagery is used because they float upward, which is associated with the heavens or life beyond the normal. Stars are also known as diamonds in the sky in the famous poem Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, to which she may be alluding. In addition to balloons floating upward, they're also somewhat fragile, easily popped, and short-lived, soon deflating, as human life may be seen as similarly ephemeral. The sage balloons travel above a sea of people who don't appreciate their journey. The sea of blonde may refer to those watching the balloons being set free, though not comprehending their situation, as Emily Dickinson has painted. Though blonde hair itself does not necessarily mean dullness, it may have been shorthand for all the types of people in the crowd. Perhaps the crowd begrudges the way the balloons float away so quickly in the fray that spurned the air. The ribbons of the balloons represent the thoughts and emotions that tether the sage to the earthly life in the way a string tethers a balloon. The balloons struggle for breath as their end comes nearer. The crowd is completely unaware. The gilded sages are wealthy with their wisdom, though they still must struggle in life. And then they leave their bodies behind. The imperial veins may mean majestic, as a juxtaposition of the internal power with the fragility of the human flesh of humans and balloons. The crowd of people leave having learned nothing, leaving empty dust behind. The final line of the stanza is the final clue that the poem is clearly not about only a balloon. With that knowledge in hand, the reader must take in all the information with the end in mind, and the balloons are something more than the people observing them are oblivious to Emily Dickinson's true being. All right, I'm done with that.
Allison was our last reader for today, but I just want to give a shout out to Nicole. If you'll remember, this event was scheduled in January, and Nicole was kind enough to make us videos of her reading. I mean, these students have just gone above and beyond.
Hi, I'm Nicole. I'm a mom of two boys. They're 18 and 16. And I've always wanted to be a nurse, but I was afraid of the schooling and the work it would take to get there. And about a year and a half ago, I enrolled in college. And talk about nerves on the first day of school, my first test, my first essay. All of this is a first for me. So being asked to read some of my work here is nerve-wracking, but also something I'm pretty proud of because I'm not letting my fear win anymore. This reading was from our first introductory assignment in English 112, where we were asked to write a quote that was meaningful to us. To find a meaningful text, I simply looked down at my forearm. I ended up getting these words tattooed on my arm years ago. While I see these words every day now, it has been some time since I truly thought about how much they mean to me and why I got them tattooed on my body. It was a difficult time in my life. I was a mother of 2 young children, and I was leaving a toxic marriage. I was entering a whole new world, a world on my own, a world where I was no longer less than, a world where my light was going to shine. One night, I was on a long drive home, listening to music off a CD a friend gave me. This song, these words, the melody, all of it was so powerful in the moment. I hit replay over and over again. This one phrase in the song was everything. The past is beautiful like the darkness between fireflies. That time of my life was so dark, but these words helped me put that darkness into a positive part of my story. I wouldn't be who I am today without my story, the good and the bad. The past shaped me into who I am today, and there can be beauty found even in the shadows. The most beautiful part of sitting outside watching the fireflies glow is when it gets dark and you're waiting for their light to shine again. I believe these lyrics can be felt universally. All of us in this class have our own stories to tell. These stories shaped us into who we are today. We're pursuing education, careers, family, and friendships. And when it gets hard, remember that the light and the beauty of the fireflies will shine again. Venturing deeper than the written words. My life closed twice before its close. Poem number 96 by Emily Dickinson. My life closed twice before its close. It yet remains to see if immortality unveil a third event to me. So huge, so hopeless to conceive, as these that twice befell. Parting is all we know of heaven and all we need of hell. In Emily Dickinson's poem, My Life Closed Twice Before Its Close, the denotive meaning of closed is not open, meaning it no longer permits passage. Connotatively, the word closed can invoke an emotional feeling of something being over, final, and absolute. The word closed can also feel as there's a loss of vitality and an emotional death, as it is portrayed in this poem. This feeling of death can unfortunately intertwine with life. The pain, grief, or sadness of losing loved ones can culminate into a piece of our soul being lost, never to be found again. Our life figuratively closed in that moment. These profound emotions can feel like the ultimate death when we are left with the pain while our life still carries on. Dickinson writes about feeling the closing of life twice before her own death. The line, if immortality unveil a third event to me, suggests that she contemplates whether there is more grief to come before her own eternal death. This corresponds to when, in times of grief and sadness, we wonder if we can handle any more heartache. When we say phrases such as, "I just can't take it anymore," we're conveying an emotional death within life. In that instant, we are trying to imagine if we can handle any further despair. Much like the line, "so huge, so hopeless to conceive." This sentiment can leave a feeling as though you're already in hell. It's dark, helpless, somber, and bleak, leaving one to feel defenseless and vulnerable to the world as we carry on through the rest of our mortality. This parasynonyma of the word closed is used both literally and figuratively in the poem, and is specifically in the line, "My life closed twice before it's closed." Dickinson has set the tone of torment in this poem while she waits for eternal death, wondering if there is more loss and grief to come before she parts for heaven, as she feels she's already experienced hell.
Just really, for all of their effort and their bravery, can we give them a big round of applause? 12:10, y'all. I was going for 12:10. Okay, because that's when my 11 o'clock class ends. God, just sometimes things come together. I'm excited about that. So thank you, y'all. Thank you for being here, audience. We really appreciate you. Thank you for putting it on. Great. Just shared with me the other day. Do you want to tell them your good news? What you just shared with me about where are you in your class?
Oh, I am valedictorian.
That's a big deal.